Jacob Stimmel. I'm from Bulls Gap, Tennessee. I was looking for a house, and Jason, when I talked to him, it seemed like he knew a lot about what he was talking about, and he was a big help with anything I ever needed. My first time buying a house, so I didn't know what I was getting into. It was a good experience. I closed actually a week earlier than planned. Anytime I needed help with anything or had any questions, he'd answer right away and help me learn a lot too. I would gladly recommend anybody. Y'all are a big help, and if I ever go to buy a house again, I'd go with y'all again. My name is Jacob Stimmel, and I got into my first home with the team at SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 212, non-equal housing lender. SaveWithConrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm good, Conrad. It couldn't be better. I'm glad to see you this morning as we record this. So life is good. Life is good. It's haircut day.
Oh, there you go.
It's haircut and beard trim day. So I'm excited about that. And that's sad. I'm excited about getting a beard trim.
I don't think it's sad. I think it's awesome that you're getting a beard trim because you're going to Philadelphia for the sickos, by the sickos. AEW Dynasty is this weekend, and what an incredible card it is. The Death Riders taking on Rated FTR. A lot of story here for the AEW Trios Championship. How about the Dream three-way dance? But now it's reality for the international title. It's Kenny Omega defending against Ricochet and Speedball Bailey. How about the TNT Championship match with Daniel Garcia and Adam Cole? A match that I know a lot of people have circled. A lot of intrigue around Toni Storm and her women's title, as she'll be defending against Megan Bayne. And how about in the main event for the world title in Philadelphia, two of the more hardcore wrestlers in AEW history, the champ, Jon Moxley, defends against Swerve Strickland. This is the first time AEW has brought pay-per-view to Philadelphia, Jim. I can't imagine how crazy this show is going to be.
Oh, it should be fun as hell, and I think the fans are going to go crazy. Just one of those deals where all the stars align, and so let's get it on. I'll be there in Philadelphia. I think my schedule will call the last two matches. That could change. But the last two matches suits me because they're going to be good.
Well, something else we know is going to be good is the WWE Hall of Fame. It was just announced that they are actually no longer just inducting people. Now they're inducting matches. Yeah. And the very first match that will be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame was my favorite WrestleMania match ever. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret the Hitman Hart.
Yeah, mine
WrestleMania
too.
13. Is that your favorite match as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Because of what happened in the match was pretty spectacular. The double turn. Psychologically, the double turns are hard to achieve, and Bret and Steve made it work. Yeah, so that's my favorite. And the visuals, Austin bleeding, Bret trying to get submission through the leg lock thing. It was just great. I say that all the time when people say, "What's your favorite match?" Well, you might expect me to say Rock and Hogan because it was such a dynamic presentation, but it was actually Rock and Austin. WrestleMania 13, and nothing else that I called in my career compares to the drama that those men created in that contest.
Well, we know there's going to be a lot of drama as we get ready for WrestleMania weekend, and I know you're going to plan to be there as well.
Yeah,
JR is going to be at WrestleCon. It's going down April 17th through April 20th. You can go see JR at WrestleCon in Las Vegas, where he'll be shaking babies and kissing hands or something like that. WrestleCon.com. It feels like there's a who's who that show up to WrestleCon, and who's who this year is it's Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler. It's a cool opportunity to get you guys together.
Yeah, it's been fun. We were in Richmond last week, Lawler and I, and had a great time. and now this coming up, WrestleCon. I've never made a WrestleCon event, so it's my first, and so I expect great results and a lot of handshaking, and like you said, Conrad, seeing a lot of friends, fans have been fans for years. It never gets old when you hear somebody say, "You were the voice of my childhood." That doesn't piss me off. As a matter of fact, it's a nice thing. So it's good stuff. I'll be signing my books, action figures, photos. So it should be a lot of fun. It really should.
We're going to have a lot of fun. Be sure to join JR and half of the other wrestling world WrestleMania weekend at WrestleCon in Las Vegas. Jim, I wanted to hit some news and notes right here at the top as well. I don't know if you saw this, but Miss Elizabeth has a new exhibit that just opened earlier this week. It's a 2-year run at the Capital City Museum in Kentucky. I think it's Frankfort, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And this is pretty cool. It's open and it's free, by the way, for the next 2 years, Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. But I think that's pretty neat. In her home state, her hometown. I hope this is sort of the first step for more of this in wrestling. I wish more small communities would embrace, some of the nostalgia and history of professional wrestling, because I remember as a kid, we'd drive into a town or whatever, and at the city limits, it might say, welcome to so-and-so, home of NFL legend, blah, blah, blah. Well, I think that's neat that we're honoring Miss Elizabeth. This could be a first step for this happening in a lot of places, Jim.
Me too. I'm excited about that. I did not know her well. I only met her a time or two, and a lot of that was because of the protective nature that Randy Savage had, which was all real and true. So she was hard to get to know because you couldn't spend any time with her. Randy made sure he saw that didn't happen, and it was unfortunate to say the least. But even though I didn't know her, I'm glad she's being recognized in this manner. It's a good deal. It's a real good deal, and I'm happy for her.
I think all of us are happy for Miss Elizabeth, and I do think it's cool that that city is doing this and honoring her, and I hope that we see more of that in the professional wrestling space. Hey, something else you're going to see more of. It was just broken by the Dallas Morning News. StarrCast is back, and it is official. It's going down at the Sheraton Arlington. It's on Friday, July 11th, and Saturday, July 12th. And tickets go on sale the Monday after WrestleMania, Monday, April 21st at StarrCast.com. And Jim, I can't help but notice the StarrCast logo this year for StarrCast Texas has a black hat hanging on it on the top right-hand corner. What do you make of that, Jim?
Well, my creative nature says it's a good thing. It says that the black hat will probably be around in some shape, form, or fashion. So it's good, Conrad. Good stuff. Good graphics. Did Silva do that?
Silva did not do that, but we are looking forward to seeing what Silva can do at StarrCast. We hope you guys will make plans to join us. This is JR's 50th year in professional wrestling, so we're going to have some JR action. We'll have some of your favorite WWE Hall of Famers and legends and superstars, and of course, all of the AEW superstars of today. It's going to be a who's who of professional wrestling. Lots of fun tricks up our sleeve. Major announcements still to come, including some names you haven't heard from in quite a while. But set your clocks now. Set your calendars now. Tickets go on sale Monday, April 21st at StarrCast.com. We're coming to you, Arlington, the Sheraton in Arlington. What a cool space that is out there too, Jim. The esports arena being right by the actual stadium where the Rangers play, where All In is going to be, and across the street is where the Rangers used to play, and I guess that's where the XFL teams are now. And it's such a cool spot. Like, I have to admit, I'd been to the Cowboys Stadium before, but I haven't explored anywhere else around Arlington. It's going to be a fun destination this weekend or this summer for AEW.
Yeah, it's all shaping together to be something special. And lot of stars on hand. They're there to have fun and enjoy themselves. So I think it's going to be fun. You know, the whole deal. I don't know all the details of it, but it sure as hell sounds like fun, and I'll be a part of it for sure. It's no doubt about that.
What a week of festivities it's going to be too. Wednesday, Dynamite is going to be live in Garland, Texas, which is 20 minutes up the road. Thursday, Collision will be live in Garland, Texas. Again, 20 minutes up the road. Friday, it's StarrCast all day and the Ring of Honor pay-per-view that night. And now we know on Saturday, we're going to have a little StarrCast before and after All In. So you can start your day bright and early at StarrCast with some of your favorite panels and meet and greets and merch opportunities. But then it's time to take a break, go watch All In, and come right back to StarrCast. We're going to pack a whole lot into a great week in Arlington. Make plans to join us if you haven't already. Tickets are on sale now at AEWTIX.com for all of the events. But StarrCast goes on sale on Monday, April 21st at StarrCast.com. That's StarrCast.com. All right, boys and girls, I got to tell you, I've recently fallen back in love with the PS5, and I'm playing me some 2K. I'm playing with my friends, and I'm having more fun than ever thanks to Turtle Beach. Man, I have to admit, I was not a big headset guy. I had only tried this in the infancy of online gaming, and I felt tethered. Back then, we had cords, boys and girls. But when I got the chance to take the Stealth 700 headset for a drive from Turtle Beach, dude, this is a game changer. It's so comfortable. And how about this? The battery life, which was my biggest concern. I thought, well, if it's wireless, that means the battery's going to go dead and I'll be mid-game. Man, I've been playing for over a month and I've not had to charge it again, not one time. They say that the battery life is like an insane 80 hours. I think it's even more than that. By the way, it's also super comfortable to wear. If you're watching this podcast, you see me wear my podcast headphones every day. Dude, the Turtle Beach ones are so much more comfortable. I'm talking specifically about the Stealth 700. The 3D audio is crazy. I mentioned I like playing the basketball games. I can hear the reverberations of the rim on missed shots. I'm hearing things that I never heard before just through my television speakers. I'm a big believer in the Stealth 700, and I'm proud to say that this has the industry's first ever cross-play dual wireless transmitter system. What that means is you can seamlessly switch between your consoles and your PC, all with just the click of a button. And by the way, it gets even better. While being connected to your console, the Stealth 700 can actually connect you with your phone. So you can stream music or take calls all while you're playing games at the same time. Yeah, listen to your favorite songs while gaming. All done with the Stealth 700. By the way, Turtle Beach doesn't just have these amazing headsets. They've got every gaming accessory you could ever want. And it's all really high quality stuff, but at prices that don't break the bank. You can get flight and racing simulators, controllers, keyboards, mice. Think of Turtle Beach as like the ultimate gaming cheat code. Head on over right now to turtlebeach.com and use our code JR. You'll get 10% off your entire order. That's 10% off your order at turtlebeach.com with the promo code JR. And after you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Get the ultimate immersive gaming experience with Turtle Beach. Today, we're going to talk about a show that happened way back on April 30th, 20 years ago today, April 30th, 2000. Of course, we're talking about Backlash 2000. It went down at the MCI Center in Washington, D.C. It's the second ever Backlash. The first, of course, was in 1999. We've got 17,876 fans here, 16,614 of which paid an astronomical $540,820 at the gate. Another incredible $170,693 in merchandise. What a home run this has to be from a live event standpoint. This feels like, I don't know, 100 years ago, but $540,000 for a non-WrestleMania, non-SummerSlam, non-Royal Rumble, just a sort of throwaway pay-per-view, if you will. 540 grand. That's huge, especially when you compare it to, 10 years prior to this. Unbelievable.
Yeah. That's a lot of cheese on a Whopper. I can tell you that right now. Well, the deal is the simple fact of pay-per-views. They have to have two things. And the number one thing they have to have is star power. Pay-per-views are attraction driven. And on this pay-per-view, it was loaded with stars. I mean, really loaded with stars, loaded with an emotional return, and had the motivation to have the main event with Rock and Triple H for the title. It had all the elements in place. But I thought that some matches on the undercard were also just absolutely sensational. But it was a real cool atmosphere. I remember it very well, quite frankly. And when AEW we had a show there in that arena, sold out, by the way. We were proud to say. But when I was in that arena, that was the thing that I thought about was, some of those great nights we had wrestling there. But boy, this Backlash 2000 was a show for the ages.
It really is a great show. But before we talk about the matches, I do want to talk a little more business. This one pulls a 1.62 buy rate, which translates to roughly 675,000 buys. What an astronomical number of buys. I mean, we've heard way back in the day that you guys would top 1 million for a WrestleMania, but thinking back through just pay-per-view history for the company, 675,000 buys is a monster number for any show in any era. Do you miss the old school feel of pay-per-view? I mean, obviously AEW is still producing pay-per-views and boxing still has pay-per-views, but with the UFC trying to shift away from that and doing stuff with ESPN Plus and WWE Network going ahead and doing their own thing on the network, it feels, I don't know, different. It doesn't feel like there's as big of a drive and push to sell the pay-per-views. Do you think that's changed the business much overall?
Yeah, it's affected the business and how it's presented. I mentioned earlier, the two things you got to have is attractions, because pay-per-views again are attraction driven. And the other thing you got to have is great promotion that's multi-layered going into the event. So even though we can all recall, if we think hard enough, of essentially a one match pay-per-view that we can all, that was a good show, but it really was all about the main event was it. But I was happy with the main event, blah, blah, blah. So the promotion for this event really, the lead in, kind of as it worked out for Backlash 2000, was WrestleMania in 2000. And so the comings and goings and the developments at that WrestleMania, especially as it relates to the main event, was very episodically told. It involved some very charismatic people. And then when you can factor in that Stone Cold's returning not in a wrestling role, but returning, if he shows up, he's not going to show up just to hang out. There's going to be a stunner to somebody. There's going to be fists flying, et cetera, et cetera. And the audience had not seen Steve, I don't think, until since November. So it was a very emotional night, but all the elements were in place. The advanced promotion and the attractions. The attraction-driven pay-per-view was really money. And there were some matches underneath that we'll talk about that were helping develop other things, other talents, like Eddie Guerrero, for example, that actually got really over his situation with China. So there's a lot of cool things. Introduction of Trish Stratus on that show was big. It's bigger today than it was then because nobody then, she was a rookie, knew how good she was going to be. We'll talk about that. But this show had it all. And it may have had one too many matches. The only critique I could have watching it back, Conrad, was the fact that some of the matches may have had too much time as far as telling a story. And so if you're filling time, it's bad booking. You're not there to fill time. You're there to, if you got a lot of 10 minutes, well, I got to fill 10 minutes. No, you got to go out and have a 10-minute presentation that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you kick some ass. That's what you got to have. So it's not filling time. But I felt like some of the matches on this show, which we'll talk about, seemed to me that they were getting more time just as gratuitously, out of good nature. It's the same old shit. We got to do what we can to keep all the boys happy. Well, you'll never keep all the boys happy, period.
No such thing.
No such thing. So what you do is you do what's best for the card and for the locker room and more importantly for the company. Again, the old golden goose thing, man. Keep the goose healthy, boys.
because she's sure as hell giving you those golden eggs. So don't screw that up. So it was an interesting night. I enjoyed that night, and I really enjoyed watching this pay-per-view, which I had not seen in 20 years.
All right, it's time for us to brag about JR's wiener. Okay, not really, but it is going to be worth bragging about for you because they've got a brand new product at Blue Chew. It's called Blue Chew Max, and think of it as like the hot tag for your wiener. No, seriously. It combines the active ingredients of Viagra and Cialis, but all into one chewable. This is a tag team combination that acts fast and truly lasts. Think of them as the tag team specialist. There's your real Midnight Express in the bedroom. Guys, be ready whenever she needs it and get your first month of Blue Chew free. You see, great sex is just a few clicks away. You sign up at BlueChew.com, you consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew's tablets are made right here in the USA. They're prepared and shipped directly to your door. And the best part is it's all done online. Now that means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. So make your life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use our promo code JR. Just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code JR. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. Let's get into it. We're coming off WrestleMania 2000. Of course, it's really WrestleMania 16. We recently did a show on that, but we saw Triple H retain the world title and Vince McMahon turn on The Rock during the match, which leads to Vince aligning with the women's champion Stephanie, Shane, and DX, creating one big stable, the McMahon-Helmsley faction. What'd you think of Stephanie being women's champ here?
Well, I had no issues with it because at that time, the women's title didn't have the chops behind it that the women in WWE have today. It wasn't a priority then. Not bragging about that, just statement of fact. So it was looked at in a little different way, almost like the hardcore title is today, kind of a gimmicky deal. Take it or leave it. It's comedy or whatever. Or in the case of the ladies, it was just TNA. So, and it wasn't about great grappling or athleticism, even though a lot of them were very good athletes, no doubt. But, I thought I thought the show just was very well thought out. And I didn't think Stephanie, she's a hell of a heel. She's a chip off the old block. Stephanie's just a female version of Vince.
Right.
And he may have been the best heel that we ever had there.
Yeah.
Because first of all, in that statement, to back that up, he helped make Austin as the ultimate antagonist.
Without question.
Then he turns now to help do the same thing with another cat named Dwayne Johnson nowadays, but then known as The Rock. So Vince had a major hand as a performer and a villain, which he relished, with two of the all-time biggest stars in WWE. So, but I had no problem with her as that. And I understand adding still the McMahon faction, including Triple H, the McMahon-Helmsley thing. We were trying to build Hunter into a great heel. Great steps, a lot of creative, a lot of time and money was put into making Triple H a bona fide, top of the card heel. And over the years, I thought we accomplished that pretty well. But it was Stephanie was money, and she still is money in a heel way, even though that's not her role. Still when she was on TV, she does the heel stuff. But she was a natural. She just watched the old man do his thing and kind of added her own spin to it, and it worked.
Let's talk about what gets us here. I should mention Earl Hebner kind of starts a feud against this faction as well, this McMahon-Helmsley faction. On the April 17th Raw, Triple H is defending his title against Chris Jericho, and during the match, Hebner comes to relieve the original referee who'd gotten knocked out, which causes Triple H to argue with him. The distraction allowed Jericho to take advantage and pin Triple H to win the title, though Hebner visibly called a fast pinfall. And the faction then brought Hunter and the original referee Mike Chioda to the ring, where Chioda admitted that Hebner made an unfair pinfall. Triple H then has Hebner fired and reverses the decision, allowing Triple H to gain the title. or regain the title rather. This is a big moment. I didn't see it coming, and the idea that Chris Jericho was going to be the world champion and was announced as the world champion, this to me was great TV. I was all about it. I mean, I realized it's a quote unquote dusty finish, but the WWE hasn't done it in so long at this point that it felt new and it felt fresh. And I thought it really worked. What'd you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. You know, it was plausible. It was plausible. And that's a term that was not used often enough in pro wrestling, then, now, or forever. Plausibility, realism. And that had the plausibility of, well, I can see that happening. And then you kind of get lost in the story. So I liked it. I had no issues with it whatsoever. It added to the overall storytelling.
Let's talk about some news and notes heading into the show. Meltzer would write, there's expected to be an announcement regarding the television situation imminently. Based on what we believe to be the case on numerous reports, the much talked about CBS deal has likely been agreed to in principle by both sides. Officially, the company has to give USA Network the right to match the offer. We're under the impression that USA has already been given the offer to match, and at least as of a few days ago, had not officially given the WWF an answer on whether or not they were going to match it, but it's been believed for some time that USA would not be matching the offer. And of course, as we fast forward a week or so, we find out that the television landscape is going to be changing. The USA Network has filed suit against the WWF, Viacom, and CBS on April 13th. And the concept here is that they had a different interpretation in the language that allowed them the offer or the opportunity to match an outside offer. This is not going to necessarily end well. Ultimately, we know the company goes to Spike, but I got to admit, even when you and I talked about it before, I didn't remember USA sort of digging their heels in, trying to fight to keep the show. What was Vince thinking during all of this, or what were you hearing from Vince about all of this sort of back and forth with USA?
Let's get away from that goddamn dog show. It's about being repositioned. You know, Viacom, CBS, and all that's a big outfit. They've been around. They got deep roots. So I think that, and there was a significant increase in money. So that was the deal there, and there'd be no preemptions. It'd be locked in every Monday night at at that time 9:00 Eastern, 9 to 11, right? 9:00 Eastern.
Yeah.
So it was a good business decision. But, you know, the way that I understood it, it was all if USA wanted to keep them, they had to match the offer. They didn't match the offer. So to me, it was to the letter of the contract, which was also proven true in court because McDivitt did it again.
Well, let's mention this. Part of the thing that USA takes issue with is they're not asked to match things that already exist in regards to the For Wrestling show. They're saying specifically, you want us to do something with the XFL on Sundays, and you want a movie developmental fund. And, there's lots of other weird stuff in here, including, CBS is offering syndicated radio spots and specials and hosting theme park events. And they're even offering to buy some WWE stock. So it's not the standard sort of contract that USA had before. Do you think this was Vince sort of getting creative to try to figure out a way to move away from USA Network because of the dog show? Or was he just, I mean, like any businessman, trying to make as much money possible through all these other avenues as well?
Oh, I think that Vince really wanted to move to Viacom.
Yeah.
I thought they were they had a great big hug with cash line sleeves, ready to give the ultimate financial embrace to WWE. And Vince, I think, in his view, I think it made our company at that time feel more wanted, and with a partner that really was invested in what we were doing, and we're trying to continue to help build the brand. It seems to me like USA got a little bit stale. And, today they're very promotional minded. USA seems like, and I say that because, as you know, I'm a big mark for Law and Order SVU, and that's on USA. And it's ad nauseum how many WWE spots they run. It's seemingly, and I know I'm exaggerating, but at least in every other break, there's a promo.
Right.
So they're getting promos out the keister, and so they've made a different change in the philosophy there. But I think Vince really had his heart set on leaving. I'm telling you, I was kidding about the goddamn dog show. Those bitches. Scottish Terrier my ass, son of a bitch. I would own a Chihuahua, I might eat one. I think he was ready to go. They made, Viacom did the old recruiting thing. You're wanted here.
Right.
You'll be valued here. And of course, we all of us, until this very day, still have certain stigmas that we all have to handle in our own right about how our business is perceived. Oh yeah, that wrestling thing. I watched when I was a kid, but so what you're saying is that you're too smart now as an adult to fucking watch wrestling, right, pal? Yeah. What do you do for a living? Oh, State Farm? How's that working for you? Make a lot of money? Excited about your career? I love my job. I love my career. And I had 2 ex-wives that didn't like my business either. That's why they're ex-wives. So you get off your stool there, step down, and understand it's an entertainment entity. It's a fictional television program. You got that? And also, I'll break this news to you. All those great John Wayne movies where he rode those horses and cowboys shoot them up, never lost a fight, blah blah blah. That was fake. John Wayne was not a cowboy. He was born in Iowa. He grew up in Southern California. He's not a cowboy. Hate to bust your bubble. Come on. So I think that they skirted that. They hurdled those issues and made Vince believe and feel, which I think was all good, that we want you guys, and we're going to help you grow your brand in ways that previously has yet to be done. And Conrad, somebody came to you with your very successful mortgage business, which I wholeheartedly, folks, if you need to refinance, you want to capture there's some good things in this goddamn virus, man. You can refinance your home for an amazingly low interest rate.
Yep.
And Conrad can help you. But if somebody came to you, Conrad, and say, hey, Conrad, we got some new ideas we'd like to pitch to you to be our partner. And if you do, here's what we'll bring to the table for your business. New things, new marketing things, new exposure, et cetera, et cetera. You would have to listen to it.
Of course.
So I think that's all Vince did, and he liked what he heard. So, and then when the lawsuit went down, without talking about a lawsuit, but McDivitt came through again, and WWE was able to walk away from the USA, take the deal on the Viacom, which is Spike, and move on.
Let's talk about some news inside of wrestling, and this is going to be something we talk about a lot someday, I'm sure. Meltzer would write, to clear up rumors, Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Chyna have indeed broken up. She confirmed this in a Dallas newspaper by saying she isn't seeing anyone. Part of the reason may have been that she wants to live in California because there's been interest in her for acting parts, and she felt the need to be located close by, and he just bought an expensive home in New Hampshire. Is Meltzer looking out for the company here, or is he just totally out of the loop, do you think?
I mean, regarding the breakup?
Well, why they broke up? I mean, they broke up because...
Oh, we know where they broke up, because Hunter started seeing Stephanie.
Yes.
And he got busted.
Yes.
How many, Conrad, as the former, I feel like one of those guys in one of the post-Trump news conferences, former secretary of, whatever.
Sure.
The former cabinet, whatever. As a former head of talent relations, I spent many hours with Chyna. Not in an intimate way, I should suggest.
Yeah, we understand.
But just business.
Yeah.
And she would sit in my talent relations my office, which at the TV shoots, which basically is a little locker room.
Right.
And she would, I don't want to say she hid there, but she isolated herself there, like this quarantine, this virus. But man, I had to talk to her. Her contract was coming up for renewal, and she wanted $1 million a year. And at that time, that was the maximum number that any talent in the company was making on a downside guarantee. That's $19,323 a week, if I recall. That's a pretty good weekly pay. And of course, you could make a lot more than that. You know, Austin had $1 million guarantee, and he had 1 year he made $12 million. So you could go. Well, the upside was there. She wanted $1 million guarantee because she felt like she was worth more, being a female, being more unique than Stone Cold and some of the other guys. There were only a handful of guys making $1 million a year.
Right.
And she wanted that money, and she was. I couldn't move her off her number. And to be honest with you, I was very leery of trying to retain her services under the present atmosphere. In other words, how is it going to be for her to come to work every week and see Hunter and Stephanie together?
Right.
Because Joni was very emotional and very sensitive, believe it or not, very sensitive. And I used to tell somebody before she passed away, I said, you know, she would come to my office and she would get on these crying things, you know, God bless her. And I was trying to think who it was. Fred Gwynn was on the Munsters, right? Fred Gwynn played the monster in the Munsters, the TV show, the sitcom, played the Herman Munster.
I believe you.
Yeah, yeah, you don't have a clue. She laughed like Herman Munster, or she cried like Herman Munster. God almighty. I mean, it's like, I look around, I'm the only person in the room other than her. I'm looking around at the ceiling. What the hell have I got? I'm not Dr. Phil. I don't know what this. So bottom line is, I tried to negotiate with her. She was set on her money. And she was just so upset, so distraught. Her breaking up with Hunter was a life-changing deal for her.
Yeah.
She truly loved the guy.
Right.
And and to Hunter's credit, if it hadn't been for him, then we would have never hired her.
Right.
Simply because she was unknown. You know, she was a Northeast person and Hunter the gyms, and you know, she had an amazing look and all that stuff. And she worked hard to improve her look with her jaw reconstruction, all that stuff. But she was really that was a really tough time for her at that point in time. So even though I wanted to re-sign her, I didn't get any pressure from Vince. He said, "What do you think you're going to do with her?" And he kind of left it up to me. And I said, "Well, I'm going to try to retain her services. We got a lot of money and time in her. So why wouldn't we try to retain her?" So do what you want to do. He never interfered in Hunter and Stephanie's defense. I'll say it for Vince. It's all business.
Right.
I said, "But Vince, if I can't get a decent number, we may have to pass on it." He said, "Well, that's your call." So I couldn't give her $1 million a year. Could she have earned over $1 million a year? She probably did a couple times, if I remember correctly. But that guarantee was just too big. And when you got a roster of 100 people, like you got 5 or 6 guys making $1 million guaranteed, not one guy that we were paying $1 million a year, Conrad, took their checks weekly. They all took it off the pay sheets, because there you got all your money immediately, as opposed to getting your weekly. And then at the end of the term, the 1 year term, you get a check written for all the overages,
right,
that you over earned. And I don't remember one guy just taking a weekly. I suggest you guys take weeklies instead of taking all their money, because that always gave them a tax fund at the end of the year, which some of them conveniently forgot for decades. So, but she was an interesting cat. But that was a trying time, man. That was can I see you a minute, JR? Sure, Joni, come on in. And then she's there. So it was very emotional. That was an interesting part of that job that I don't think sometimes fans really fully realize what that talent relations head does. I think, who's the head of talent relations now there? Brad Blum?
I thought it was Carano, is it not?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's on the management team. Felt bad for Carano having to fire all those people. He got the shit job.
Yeah,
call these 40 people and tell them they're done.
Yeah, there's no fun in that. I can't wait for us to talk about Chyna in long form sometime. I'm just fascinated with her story. I think it's one of the most unique stories in all of wrestling, and I know we'll have fun with it, but it just stuck out like a sore thumb that, you know, when Meltzer wrote, maybe the reason they broke up is Hunter bought an expensive house in New Hampshire and she wants to do Hollywood stuff. No, that's not it.
Bullshit.
All right. By now, you know that JR started eating a little better, and it's important for him to have no sugar. Now, a lot of times that would mean that people are saying you can have no fun, But our friends at Magic Spoon know the difference. Magic Spoon makes high protein, zero sugar cereal and treats that have been reinvented from your childhood, so much you can actually taste the nostalgia. Now, you probably already knew that, but I've got brand new news for you. Now Magic Spoon has high protein granola. And just like all of the Magic Spoon promises, it's packed with protein and it's oh so crunchy. You've heard me bragging about the treats for quite a while. I love them. They taste just like the ones that Mom used to make, except without all the sugar. They're crispy, they're crunchy, they're airy, and an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. In fact, Double J keeps them in his glove box to keep him from eating junk food while he's running errands. They come in very familiar mouth-watering flavors. How about marshmallow? Yeah, you know the one. Even chocolate, peanut butter, and dark chocolate. Now, my favorite is double chocolate, and I double dog dare you to try it. You should also check out the new granola. It's a brand new granola that packs in 13 grams of protein and 0 added sugars, all thanks to our friends at Magic Spoon. And you know it, they come in great flavors: dark chocolate almond, honey almond, and even peanut butter. So what are you waiting for? Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/JR, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/JR for $5 off. On the April 13th episode of As the Wrestling World Turns, things get rather interesting. And you and I have never spent any time talking about this. A WWF contracted wrestler, Taz, with 2 Z's, defeats a WCW contracted wrestler, Mike Awesome, for the ECW world title. This is just fascinating to me. Of course, fast forward a little bit and we would see Taz drop that belt to Tommy Dreamer at the ECW arena. Tommy had never been the champion. Of course, he is the longtime quote unquote white meat babyface flag bearer of ECW. So it's a big deal for him to win it. And of course, he immediately drops it. But before Taz gets an opportunity to get the belt back to ECW, Vince has him wrestle the World Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion Triple H on SmackDown in Philadelphia, no less. And of course he loses. This to me is the most egregious Bruce Pritchard, and he's our buddy, but he would always defend, no, that helped Taz because Hunter is the world champion. No, that fucking killed Taz deader than Kelsey's nuts and the ECW promotion, does it not?
It didn't do any favors. Kill might be a strong word. It didn't help anybody in that regard, except Hunter got a nice win in Philadelphia. Taz was so underutilized when we hired him, in WWE. For whatever reason, he was never in political favor. And guys, I don't know. Hunter may have had an issue. Hunter's 6'4". Taz is what, 5'8", 5'10", 5'9"? I don't know.
Yeah, he's under 6 foot. Yeah.
So you got the perception was, even though Taz could snuff out 99% of the guys on the roster, that, he's not convincing. Well, if you watch any of the ECW stuff, Taz got over.
Yes, he did.
And people believed he was the human suplex machine. So I was very excited when we were able to hire him. I remember getting a little callback notes, like a little yellow pad. You've seen those from who, the number and all that stuff, from secretary, take a message rather. And it was from Peter Cernicchia. He was so paranoid then, he didn't want anybody to know it was him calling. So he used his real name, Peter Cernicchia. And I think I may pronounce his last name wrong. If I did, no disrespect meant. This is my Oklahoma ignorance, I guess. So, but I was happy. Hey, that was a big get from me. I thought I was a big mark for his work in ECW. Heyman knew how to book him. So there again, you get these egos involved. Okay, he's too short. Says who? Who the fuck are you now, Luthez? And then the other thing is, guys that have been in too many real fights have never had their ass beat by somebody shorter than them. Happens all the time. It happens all the time on Earth. And especially when you grow up like here in Norman, you think the football players screw with the wrestlers that were 125, 130, 140 pounds? Shit, no. Because they got nothing to lose and nothing to gain, everything to lose when the little guy whips your ass and makes you tap out and squeal like a pig under a gate. So I just thought that Taz got a bad hand coming in. Then, of course, he tears, I think, a bicep or tricep, something like that, and that slowed everything down. And, him getting that big win on over Angle in the Garden, I think other people would like to have had that opportunity to beat Kurt Angle, but Taz had pointed out. So Vince, in the beginning, was very much a Taz proponent, but he got unconvinced over time by the opinions on the other side of the aisle.
Let's promise to talk about that another time. Let's move on. The proposed Stu Hart birthday show, promoted by Stampede Wrestling on May 31st in Calgary, was to include 26 performers from the WWF, and it was officially postponed last week after it became clear it was a no-win situation to hold the event. The actual announcement of this came in a Jim Ross update on the WWF website when he stated the show had been postponed. Stampede Wrestling, after getting negative publicity when Stu Hart said in a Calgary Sun article that he wouldn't be attending the show and thought that due to it being so close to the 1-year anniversary of Owen's death, he didn't feel like it was appropriate to be celebrating, and he decided to quietly let the show die down. The company feeling is that since both Stu and Martha Hart, who are the ultimate babyface in the community, had come out against the show, that it had become a no-win proposition, even though the WWF had ordered all of its wrestlers who had signed up to honor their commitments, even though they wanted to pull out based on it becoming a controversial subject. There's still talk of doing a Stu Hart holiday or birthday show rather in the fall, feeling maybe getting away from the month of May would eliminate some of the local media bad taste regarding the 1-year anniversary of the death of Owen. And it's said that Stampede wanted the show on June 1st rather than May 31st, just to get out of the month of May. But because of travel problems with the wrestlers in the WWF who would be in Tacoma for SmackDown on Tuesday, and Calgary isn't that bad of a flight there, rather than going home for a day and then flying back and staying on the road, it just made more sense. Talk to me a little bit about this. It's Stampede Wrestling at this point is run by Bruce and Ross Hart. They're aware from the beginning that Brett and Martha are not going to be involved because the WWF is involved. And now you're sort of the monkey in the middle here, are you not? I mean, when Bruce and Ross reach out to Vince and try to get him on board with this, and it's carved off to you to, hey, help make this happen. And then Stu says, no, I don't really want to. What do you remember of this? This feels like a mess.
It was a cluster. And, I think the reasoning and the motivation for it originally was honorable. But I can understand the Harts having some of them having an issue. Look, if you don't have the patriarch there to celebrate his birthday, what the fuck are we thinking?
Right.
It made no sense. So consequently, it was a bad idea to start with. I think Vince was trying to extend the Ann Olive branch, considering the intertwined drama involving the Harts and the company. So I think his intentions were honorable, but it was just ill-timed. And I can tell you that if the talents are going to go to Calgary to honor Owen or to be involved in a promotion that involved Brett, then there have been less pushback. But you're taking a day off from them. I mean, people say, well, it's just one day. Sometimes people have to go and see their children, their wives, their families, and maybe do their laundry, sleep in their own bed one night. So the talents weren't overwhelmed with it because they didn't have the emotional attachment. Most of them, some of them did, that worked for Stu and Stampede. But the bottom line is that most of them were not happy with the booking. They want to go home and recharge their batteries and all that stuff. So there was not a big, I would say there's more of a collective sigh of relief for talents to not have to go on a day off to go celebrate somebody's birthday that wasn't going to show up. So it was a bad idea, Conrad, as it worked out, but it was I think it was well intended. And when when you get at the time too, think about this: the intangible elements of that were the inter-promotional, the inter-family issues that were ongoing. You had one faction that was over here, you had another faction over there, and you had some in the family that didn't want to have anything to do with any of it because they just didn't want to, they were tired of the drama and all that stuff. So it was a good initial idea, with good intentions, I felt like. But overall, once he started playing it out, it was a very poor idea.
Let's keep it moving here. Let's talk about Mark Henry. Meltzer would report Mark Henry's being sent to OVW. I think it's pretty clear they're trying to get him to quit. Come to think of it, if you think of the angles they've done with him from the,
that's wrong right there. That's wrong. How the fuck when anybody says they're trying to get him to quit? Horse shit. That's so lame. That's a total wrestling cop out bullshit. Well, they're trying to get him to quit. If we want him to quit, you set his ass at home and you unbook him. You take him off television. We had no desire whatsoever to get Mark Henry to quit. We still saw money in him. And eventually that money panned out. He was just slower to evolve than ideally wanted. This stuff like that just aggravates the shit out of me because look, we spent a lot of time on Mark Henry. He needed to have more fundamental training. He was brand new. This ain't weightlifting. As he'll tell you. So, and we had him, if we want to get rid of him, Conrad, why do we send him to so many different coaches and tutors, including Mark Henry going to Calgary and working with Leo Burke and Brett? Come on. Made no sense. So go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Well, check out what he cites as other reasons that he feels like the company's trying to make Mark quit. Come to think of it, if you think of the angles they've done with him, from the BJ, from the transvestite to the relationship with Mae Young, they've probably been trying for some time. Henry signed a 10-year contract for a reported $2.5 million long before he ever had his first match, back when he was training for the 96 Olympics in weightlifting.
That's $250,000 a year, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's not a bad investment to have in a guy that you perceive at some point in time can be a main eventer.
Yeah.
As it worked out, Mark Henry became a world champion and a Hall of Famer. And we were trying to run him off. Look, I'm not going to defend the horse shit creative, including a BJ with a alleged transvestite, or the thing with Mae Young. That was allegedly written for humor. Could have been Mark Henry or somebody else, but Mark Henry, so his face, one of the reasons we loved him and still do, so expressive, and so he was a candidate that stood head and shoulders, literally and figuratively, above anybody else in that regard. Did it help his character to be involved in these horse shit comedy angles? No, it didn't. So, but to try to run him off, hey, look, if he quit because he didn't like the creative, that might have made some people happy. It sure as hell would not have made me happy because we had time and money invested in this guy. Because athletic big men still draw a premium, and you give them more time to evolve and to develop. Sorry for the smaller guys of the world who are probably better workers and better, more athletic oriented, but that's the way of the world in the pro wrestling.
Oh man. Let's keep it rolling here. Let's talk about some other news in the Observer. Representatives of New York State Senator Tom Liebes, who was contemplating introducing legislation that would mandate drug testing for all wrestlers to perform in New York, and representatives of both WWF and WCW are scheduled to meet to work out a compromise in the proposed legislation. How big of a deal was this? I mean, obviously you guys have your own testing policies. People at different points have sort of poked fun at WCW's, but we'll table that for another day. But the idea that there's a senator in New York who wants everyone on the roster before they perform to be drug tested. What's Vince's takeaway on that?
Well, it's probably stimulated by the constant ramblings and ranting of Phil Mushnick in the New York Post.
Right.
And so he created an awareness of what he perceived to be a faulty drug program in WWE because he didn't like wrestling. He thought it was beneath him. He thought the people that were fans of wrestling were, just the scum of the earth, bottom feeders. And we all know that's not true. So he was an elitist. And the other thing, you really didn't think it was going to get too far because much like today's politics, Conrad, these son of a bitches can't even balance their checkbook. They ain't got a clue how to balance a budget. And it's all about the politics of things. So this guy, all he was going to do is get some publicity, and he did. But I never thought it was going to go that far. The cost of doing it, of course, that's another thing about our politicians. They don't worry about costs. They just write it up. We'll figure something out. And can you? No, I'm not going to the Trump thing. But another way, anyway, it was a concern, not because we're trying to hide anything. It just became cumbersome. It was expensive for the state to do. It just didn't make a lot of common sense. Should we have had drug testing? Absolutely. You want to make sure and that's primarily for health. For the to check, make sure guys don't have any lingering issues that go undetected. But it wasn't a serious threat, and I think it was politically motivated. The guy was trying to the senator was trying to get himself over, and it didn't work.
Russell would also write, Shawn Michaels is expected to return to his old commissioner role sometime around the middle of the month. Jim Ross teased it in an internet report, and Michaels wrote back that he'd be glad to be back, but nobody from the company had told him he would be back or given him a date. Shawn did commentary on Raw a few times in the summer of '98. Since you were on a call with him during these shows, how do you think he did?
Oh, good. He's a good communicator. Shawn was going through so many life changes during that era, getting his life back together or trying to, divorces, same shit the guys go through, divorces, substance abuse, injury, pain management, all these things that can be problematic. Obviously Shawn has a great feel for the business by and large. When he's Shawn Michaels, the character, anytime you've seen him on TV lately, when he's done a promo, when he's in the Shawn Michaels mode, he's still as good as he used to be. When he tries to be something else, that personality doesn't resonate as brightly as the Shawn Michaels HBK persona. Michael Higginbotham is a little bit lower key. So he did fine. It was just, we're trying to find a role. I think that's why he had got a call, creative. He had a role in creative, and quite honestly, it's like I talked to Vince about, Vince, he's your guy. He loves you. You love him because you say he reminds you of you when you were young, defiant and attitudinal. I said, I can get all the pieces together, but at the end of the day, you got to stretch those arms out and say, come on home. And that's going to make it work. So it ended up, that's kind of what we did.
Let's get to Backlash. Our opening match here on the pay-per-view, Edge and Christian are going to retain the WWF tag team titles, beating X-Pac and Road Dogg. 9 minutes, 23 seconds. Meltzer would call it a strong opener. And he gave it 3 stars. And he would also note, although it wasn't noticeable, X-Pac in particular got tired early due to asthma and called for the finish several minutes beforehand, which may have explained the finish happening so quickly. I got to tell you, I love Edge and Christian, and I didn't remember much of X-Pac and Road Dogg as a tag team, but I thought this worked. What'd you think?
Yeah, they're very underrated. X-Pac and Road Dogg, I thought they're two pros, have been through the territory system, worked for a lot of different promoters and bookers. They're both students of the game. Road Dogg from that great Armstrong family that says wrestling was their life and still is by and large. But they were very underrated, I thought. But this is a match that was the reason for this match was to help build Edge and Christian. They needed some quality wins. They needed some positive exposure. They need to be able to have the opportunity to maximize their minutes, and working with X-Pac and Road Dogg really helped them in that regard. I thought it was a real good opener. I thought it set the tone for energy and excitement for the rest of the night. And I'm glad it went under 10 minutes. I'm not glad X-Pac had issues with his asthma, of course, but this show had, as we said earlier, some matches had a propensity to go a little bit longer than they actually needed to go, which we'll get into. I got a couple in mind, but I thought those guys had a great opener, and it just goes to show you that the role of the opening match on a pay-per-view is crucial. It is very, very important to book and score with a good, solid opening match booking. It's not like the old days of the territories where the opening match is a 10-minute draw. It's just, you blew that concept all to hell. You got to have that great opener, and these guys delivered. They really did. All 4 really, really good talents and high skill sets, which you just love.
X-Pac's going to need some stitches when it's all over. At one point, Christian hits him with the ring bell, and the bolt on the bell cuts him open hard way. So, rough night for X-Pac, but still a great opening match, 3 stars, but not as good as the next match, which on paper, I got to tell you, I was like, what to expect here. It's Dean Malenko and Scotty 2 Hotty. It's for the WWF light heavyweight title, which was never really a prominently featured belt on WWE programming. Meltzer would say it was a fast-paced, excellent match, and Malenko was and this is real, the unnoticed in-ring star of the show. And I think you could go back and watch this and say, might be actually one of Dean Malenko's best matches in the company. He gets 4 stars here. They get plenty of time to tell the story, 12 minutes, 59 seconds. I think Dean Malenko has been criminally underrated. I felt like he was a big star, in the cruiserweight division for WCW, but for whatever reason, it felt like it never really clicked in the WWF. Did Vince just not get Dean? Were the writers, did they not think that he had the quote unquote acting chops for their type of ha-ha? Or why do you think Dean didn't get a more featured role in the company?
Because he's 5'8", Conrad, and no overload. He did have an overload of external charisma. 5'8", 5'7", and even though when you know Dean Malenko, when you talk to Dean, he's one of the most glib, entertaining guys that I've ever met in wrestling.
Absolutely.
He has amazing personality. But if you don't try to get to know somebody, if you don't make the attempt as a writing staff to get to know the talents on a one-on-one basis so you can actually see how they truly are and then establish who they truly are and then build on that, that's what you're going to get. Dean is an amazingly important team member in AEW. He's one of the coaches. And those kids soak up his knowledge, which he has a wealth of, very easily. I can't believe that guys like him and Finley had left WWE in the last, because guys like that kind of experience and knowledge are irreplaceable. You can't go, well, let's go get a young guy. You get a young guy, go get a goddamn teenager. Get somebody that's got their learner's permit. I don't give a shit. They're not going to bring the cachet that a guy like Malenko does to the equation. And the other thing, let's not forget, Scotty 2 Hotty, Scott Garland, another guy very underrated. Hell of a good hand, man. And he's solid. And those guys told a logical story. And if it wasn't the very best match on the card, it certainly was the most out of nowhere hit that we booked on that card the entire night. It just, like you said, Conrad, didn't have high expectations going in, which may have added to its popularity because all of a sudden, hey, this is good, man. These guys are really good. So it's just the cruiserweight thing was not, or the whatever light heavyweight, it just was never given the respect because, again, size matters in WWE in that era in more ways than one.
Let me mention, this gets the highest rating, a star rating from Meltzer on this entire show. And if you're a fan of meat and taters wrestling, this is about as good as you're going to get here. 4 stars, really a great match for an underrated performer and maybe even a forgotten belt. The WWF light heavyweight title nearly had the cachet that the WCW cruiserweight title does, but this shows you what these guys are capable of. And Scotty 2 Hotty, who's certainly over, you know him more of a comedic persona, but this is a really good match. I can't recommend it enough. The next one, well, it's a little different. It's Boss Man and Bull Buchanan. They get a win over the Acolytes in 7 minutes and 41 seconds. It's a fast paced match. It's super stiff, but the previous 2 matches, as far as the traditional wrestling, I think is not as good. But if you're into the big guys, this has got everything you need. Star in 3/4. The finish comes when we see Boss Man hit Buchanan with the nightstick, and Bull does a famouser off the top rope on Bradshaw for the pin. What'd you think of this one?
Oh, that's your answer. What's that little thing? It's a MEH. Meh. It was hard work, physical, but when you got 2 teams in there like that, I don't know that their specialties was brawling. And to me, that would have been an all crazy brawl from the get-go, and it would have been over sooner than later. I just didn't feel that the story going into the match was strong. Then that ends up not being fair to the talents. They made the best of what they could with it, but the match did not have advanced fanfare. We talked about that earlier. You got to have something that's got a build to it. And this had if it had a build, it was very short and very tepid. Effort was great. The styles kind of clashed to me. And I was not a big fan of the match.
Let's mention before this match, there was a meeting of the minds backstage with Vince making sure that the Stooges are with him. Of course, we're talking about Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson. Also in the room, of course, Triple H, Stephanie, and Shane McMahon. After this Acolyte match, the Hardy Boys are shown talking about their upcoming hardcore title match, and they have an understanding about how they're going to compete for the title in this match. And then we see that Crash Holly, who is the champ, is talking to his cousin Hardcore Holly. And Hardcore says he'll go after his cousin and slaps him. And the announcers are starting to talk about how Steve Austin has not yet arrived to the building. And the entire show is you saying something like, Steve Austin is set to arrive anytime. But he's still, so this feels a little bit like a TV show where, you know, we're teasing a thread that, hey, stay tuned, folks. Taz could be, or not Taz, but Stone Cold should be here any segment now. And, it's a pay-per-view instead. What's the thinking in the tease of he could be here anytime on a pay-per-view?
Smart broadcasting, Conrad. What are you going to kayfabe Austin coming or not coming? And why haven't we seen him yet? Is he here? Is there a backstage? Why haven't I heard or seen from Austin? And plus that's what the old man wanted.
Right.
Continue to keep Steve's name alive, build the anticipation for Steve's arrival. We knew he was there, for God's sakes. Saw him at catering earlier today, having his 18th cup of coffee. Seriously, that's all it was. This advanced promotion. And to the critics' credit, you know, I probably oversold that. I probably could have mentioned it less, but you know, that was my charge. That was my direction. So I did it. But so knowing me sometimes, being the extremist that I am, you know, if one piece of chocolate cake, Conrad, you know what I'm saying, is good, then that second piece of chocolate cake is money.
I love you for that. Here's the hardcore title match. Matt and Jeff Hardy, Perry Saturn, Bob Holly, and Taz. It's 12 minutes and 20 seconds. Of course, Crash Holly is in here and he's going to retain the title by scoring the first pin. Meltzer would say everyone worked hard and stiff, but it was almost like a battle royal and then it was too many guys brawling at the same time, making it hard to watch. Jim Ross at least twice mentioned Taz as a former ECW champion. There is a stage fixture. You know, back in the day, they had different sort of themed pay-per-view sets, and we've got Crash and Matt Hardy climbing that thing. Of course, Crash winds up falling first, and he hooks his ankle and hanging backwards before eventually falling. And then Matt winds up delivering a plancha from 12 or 13 feet up. It's pretty cool when they could, I don't know, do something with those sets. But some of this stuff in hindsight, it's a little silly. Cookie sheets as weapons and things like that. What'd you think? Star and 3/4 is what Meltzer gave it.
I never was a big fan of the hardcore matches. I've always been a big fan of one-on-one matches that had a quote unquote hardcore rule. All the hardcore stuff is simply a way to help market the ECW brand. Hardcore, you know,
right.
Here, you know, I'm a big listener, regular listener, Busted Open on Sirius XM channel 156. And you know, there's a lot of hardcore ECW oriented talk there because obviously, Bubba Dudley, who by the way, has done a great job on that show as a broadcaster, very compelling broadcaster. Bubba's he's found another skill set that he's good at. But he and Tommy Dreamer is also a frequent guest there. Dave LaGreca, they're big ECW guys, and so forth. And by the way, back on just real quick, throw this in. Mark Henry not only is in the Hall of Fame, several, he's been a multiple-time world champion. He's become a hell of a broadcaster on radio as well. I've always thought that Mark had a great future in Hollywood. So if you get a guy that's got his look and he's articulate, he's got a very expressive face, he's coachable, then if you get him a movie role while he's still under contract, he's all of a sudden he becomes a bigger star. All those things are on the table. So again, the theory of us trying to get rid of Mark Henry, it was just not accurate, quite frankly. But the ECW thing was that was an asset. Vince was, we owned it, right? I mean,
yeah.
So you own the IP, you own the library, you own everything.
You don't at this point, but you're going to, and you're certainly sort of backdooring them some cash, and you have a good relationship with them. And if there's a subset of fans who like this, we got to have it somewhere on the card.
Yeah.
It's like a buffet, right? You got to have something for everybody.
Exactly. And I love those goddamn buffets, Conrad. Ooh, boy.
You think we'll ever get a buffet again, or is coronavirus taking buffets from us?
I don't know, man. Golden Corral may be in trouble, folks.
Let me ask you about something.
I was going to say this about the hardcore thing real quick.
Sure.
It's become a joke.
Right.
And every unbooked, underneath talent on the WWE roster seems to get a cup of coffee in a hardcore match. That's their exposure. So you got all these multiple hardcore matches of guys running around like Benny Hill, the Keystone Cops, or any other any other comedic group that I can age myself even more with. It's become a joke. It's time to go make a sandwich or whatever. If you look back and you mentioned the talents in this damn thing, Taz,
yeah.
Holly, Perry Saturn,
the Hardys,
and the Hollies.
Yeah.
That was a good group. That was a good group of talent. So when you up the talent and their skill sets and how proficient they are in the ring, the presentation all of a sudden takes an entirely different look and presentation and feel. And so at least at that time, the hardcore stuff was going to be kind of funny. Some funny spots, like you said, the cookie sheets and things like that. I think Taz got knocked out in this match with a stop sign. It's just using gimmicks.
Right.
And taking headshots. So all of a sudden you got unprotected headshots. Well, not good. We know that now. But I thought that was one of the better presentations. But getting a couple of stars out of a hardcore match under those auspices is daunting. So I think that the rating for that match probably was about right. Had nothing to do with the effort, but the concept. The concept itself was suspect, shall we say, to be nice.
Let's pivot to something that I found in my research, and I'll admit I didn't know that this was a thing, but apparently Taz and Crash Holly had some problems a few years prior to this. I guess Crash goes to the ECW House of Hardcore to get trained. Taz is basically running that at that point. They have some issues, and Taz essentially kicks him out. Do you remember there being some talent relations issues between the two that you had to clear up?
Nope. Didn't bring it to me. Cause I would have solved it one way or the other, because that's what you got to do.
Sure.
You can't let lingering issues linger. Old issues need to go away. Bring closure as best you can. But I may have heard the story, that maybe Crash had a bad attitude or something. And look, be honest with you, Taz is not Mr. Congeniality all the time.
No.
So, I mean, he's a product of his environment. And, so he's a very aggressive, and demanding in a lot of ways, but he was a hell of a coach. He does a good job for AEW now when we have TVs where everybody's there. He does a good job of helping coach these kids up, and which is good for us. But no, I don't remember anything. And look, if it would have been taken care of very quickly, very succinctly, and we would have moved on.
It's fascinating to look back at Taz in WWE because it's just a totally different presentation very quickly from what we were used to with ECW. And as you said, a major miss. Backstage, we see Shane McMahon being interviewed by Jonathan Coachman. A man that's jumped off at me, coach with hair. I hadn't seen that in a long time. I guess neither's he.
Yeah.
Shane is the referee in the main event, and he's happy that his dad's given him this responsibility. But he's ending this very quickly saying, "Hey, I got to get ready. The match is coming up." And next up, we get a video package for Big Show's match with Kurt Angle. And this is the start of Big Show becoming a comedic babyface. For a long time, he was the big heavy heel for the McMahon clan. And, he's been doing imitations for several weeks leading up to this match with Kurt Angle. And Angle is getting frustrated that Big Show is letting his talent, quote unquote, go to waste. And, Angle is doing one of his arrogant heel pre-match promos, saying that, like George Washington, he cannot tell a lie. Don't forget we're in Washington, DC. He says Big Show is a waste of talent. And, Angle said these people should be ashamed of re-electing Marion Barry. He says, look it up. And he said, some people are liars and cheaters, and look at the president. And he called him, himself a hero, like he always does.
The president at that time, folks, was Bill Clinton. And Marion Barry was the mayor of Washington, D.C., who got smoking crack on camera.
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing.
But
a thing.
A thing. This is fun. I'll be honest. I kind of forgot this was on this show. And when I saw Big Show come out, well, first of all, when they played Real American, Hulk Hogan's old theme song from the 80s. And let's not forget, WCW is not out of business. Hulk Hogan is still headlining pay-per-views for WCW, at least for a few more months until July. And now we've got Big Show coming out to his theme music with a bald wig on with a blonde mullet. And he's got the yellow and the boots, and it says Showster instead of Hulkster. Really just tremendous cosplay by Big Show. Super fun. The crowd is all over it. And it's written in the Observer. Vince McMahon specifically told the announcers not to mock Hogan, as the feeling was doing so would be seen as coming down to the level of competition. If there was a mock, it was Jim Ross noting that when the crowd chanted Hogan, it's been a long time since so many fans in one building have chanted for Hogan, which is a knock at WCW not drawing shit for houses at the time. I loved this version of Big Show, and I thought he had a home run here. Of course, he does get the win. 2 minutes, 37 seconds. It's essentially a comedy squash, and maybe not the best use of Kurt Angle on pay-per-view, but good Lord, what a great and entertaining segment this was, at least for me. What'd you think?
If you look at it strictly for entertainment and not wrestling heavy, athletic heavy, in-ring bell-to-bell heavy, it was a hit. And I think that's what it was drawn out to be. I've always felt that we in WWE at the time could have done a much better job of highlighting Big Show. More with a giant, more with an attraction wrestler, more with the Andres, the attraction guys, Crusher Jerry Blackwell, Abdullah the Butcher, any other attraction type guy, Big John Studd, any of these larger than life characters that have a limited skill set and only do it, that just, there's certain things they can do really, really well. But how many times can you see that? My point is, Big Show got grossly overexposed in that era of WWE, and he could have got over much bigger with less exposure, or the exposure could have been not live in front of the audience every single week, because he loses his specialness when he sees somebody every single week, and so I thought that was a error over looking back on it and using hindsight as 2020, but he pulled it off real well. And I think it's things like that have led to things like that, meaning the entertainment stuff, the comedy, have led to Big Show having his own sitcom on Netflix. He's basically the same kind of role. He's a comedic character. Paul White's got a great sense of humor, very sensitive guy, and he's a smart guy. So I just didn't think at that time a one-off here and there being, but he was doing all these impressions, and he was very good at it. But I don't know how I don't think it helped build that character as much as that I would have liked in my own mindset. But nonetheless, they pulled it off. Kurt showed great entertainment skills. He got it over, and Big Show pulled off the Hogan thing. When I saw that, when I watched the show back, it just jumped out at me. I'd forgotten about all the little nuances that Big Show did, because he had been doing those impersonations in the locker room or at catering or wherever for a long time. He was good at it. He did a lot of different talents. So, but I just felt like maybe we could have got more money out of him by being not as big and cuddly as we were trying to make him the big, nice baby face. He's still 7 feet, 400 pounds. I'm going to sell that first instead of a sense of humor.
All right, Jim, time to talk about one of our favorite sponsors here. Of course, we're talking about Home Chef. Listen, if one thing JR and I know, it's eating good, boy. And Home Chef delivers fresh ingredients and chef-designed recipes conveniently to your doorstep to simplify your cooking experience. And that's the reason JR and I know that Home Chef is number one in quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe. That's what they've been using. That's what people have been saying, because listen, we've tried here on the program all of the different meal kit delivery services. Home Chef is number one. Whether you prefer those classic meal kits with pre-portioned ingredients or quick 30-minute recipes or even oven-ready options, maybe microwave meals, or what about a dedicated family menu? No matter what you're looking for, Home Chef has everything you and your family could ever need for hassle-free and delicious dinners. Home Chef has over 30 different options a week and serves a variety of dietary needs. We all get into sort of a rut where we feel like we're eating the same things over and over. Home Chef eliminates that, but also makes sure it checks all your dietary boxes at the same time. Did I mention it's more economical too? You see, Home Chef customers average saving like $86 a month on their groceries. You know, guys like you or I, we're not sure. Hey, do I have that at home? Oh, well, I'll get another one just in case. We wind up overbuying. We're not getting the right size portions, none of that. Home Chef has it figured out. They're going to save us money. It's going to taste better. It's going to be convenient, and it's going to be quality. And when meal planning ends up on the back burner, can I recommend you check out Home Chef's new 5-ingredient meals that simply prep with super easy recipe steps, and it's just 5 fresh pre-portioned ingredients. How cool is that? 5 ingredients. That's it. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off and free shipping on your first box, plus free dessert for life. Go right now to homechef.com/JR. One more time. Home Chef is hooking you up 50% off and free shipping on your first box, plus free dessert for life at homechef.com/JR.
Next up, we get a video package airing, I guess the hype for the TNA with Trish Stratus versus Dudley Boys match. And the story here is that Trish has taunted Bubba Ray Dudley. Of course, Bubba Ray Dudley in this era is running around powerbombing everybody, including Mae Young, which we've covered here on the show. And he's putting these ladies through tables. But when he's tried to put Trish through a table, she started to kiss his head and kiss on him. And then he went into a trance that allowed TNA to come save him, or save her rather, and put the beat down on Bubba. So this is interesting to me because we've seen him as this, he gets in this trance and he destroys everybody, but a little sugar from Trish Stratus changes everything, doesn't it?
Hell yeah. Dang right, man. I am looking at my office here now. I'm looking at a little grill. It's a replica grill, like you would take out like your green egg, but only a more traditional grill, right? And I was working on the cookbook and doing some other things, and always a big griller. And so she gave me that as a gift. I still got it. Let me see what it says here. JR, thank you for your support and for believing in me, Trish Stratus. I've kept that all these years. That's been 20 plus years. It hadn't got lost in the moves and things. And she was one of Jan's favorites too, by the way. But nonetheless, I got it here in my office. I still think about it. She was such an easy hire. She wanted to do it, and she had the great look. You know, she had that Pam Anderson look to me. And Pam Anderson at that time was smoking hot after being discovered at a CFL Canadian Football League game. You know, she became a huge star. So Trish had a similar look. What a sweetheart. But we could tell, at least, she was going to be a bigger star than anybody in TNA. TNA, Test and Albert. They're good hands. God bless Test. He passed too early. But she was the diamond in the rough in that whole scenario. And Bubba Dudley helped facilitate Trish becoming a star with a very unique and innovative rub. So I thought that presentation was really interesting, and I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. But I've always enjoyed the Dudley's work, and Trish is one of my all-time favorites. So it worked out for me. I liked it.
This match is 11 minutes and 4 seconds. The entire build, of course, is to the table spot. I mean, that's what everybody's looking for. But I think people really are into this whole Bubba and Trish thing. Eventually Trish gets on the apron, takes her jacket off and starts wiggling, and Bubba loses interest in the match. Eventually he goes after him, or he goes after her. She kisses him again. He shakes off the magic powers of the kiss and instead power bombs her off the top rope through the table. She does a stretcher job. And, this is written in the Observer. She apparently has asked for Bubba to not protect her as obviously as he's done with other women. She'd agreed to take more of the bump, which he was a little reluctant to do, but ultimately agreed to it. I guess she wanted to get over as someone who could do her own stunts. 2 stars. Test and Albert get the win, but what everybody was looking for was Trish to go through a table, and it happened.
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of women, a lot of men that were green in the business, just got into the business, would have been very, very reluctant and leery taking a power bomb from anybody. Thank God it was Bubba, because he did know how to execute it without killing someone. That's kind of the name of the game in this world of pro wrestling. Make it look like he killed him, but it doesn't. But I always admired her courage and her commitment to be not just being she's a pretty version of Moolah. She's a good female wrestler, and she's always been in the mid card. Let's not forget that, and all the great talk and rightfully so and deservedly so of the ladies like Charlotte and Becky, Ronda, the WrestleMania main event, all great things. But before that, there was a show called Monday Night Raw that was getting good ratings. And they did reserve the last segment of the show for the big stuff. And remember that Trish was in the first ever closing segment of Raw as being a female. So she was a groundbreaker. And that attitude that she's taking that power bomb was one of the reasons that she facilitated that for herself. Really a great pro, and so proud of her. She went to the Hall of Fame. It's like seeing a daughter or your niece or something like that going to the Hall of Fame. I just was very, very proud of her accomplishments there that night when she went to the Hall.
Let's keep it moving here. Oh, I guess we should mention, we see Trish loaded into an ambulance, and then there's a car pulling up. It's Eddie Guerrero and Chyna, and he's informed by a referee that he has to go to the ring right now to defend his European title. And the story is that Eddie was just at his prom and got back just in time for him to defend his European title, beating S.A. Rios.
Yeah, because Conrad, that drive from El Paso after a prom to Washington D.C. is challenging.
It is,
even without traffic.
Well, maybe not in this quarantine era. You might be able to zip right through there.
Yeah, right.
Meltzer would write, I guess the entire GED and prom gimmick was only for an excuse to rip Chyna's dress off, since they've never shown her in her underwear before. Guerrero and Chyna came in driving a 57 Chevy to make sure everyone recognizes this is the single most stereotypical racial character in the industry. He's arrived late, so they go to the ring in prom clothes, and Guerrero actually wrestles in dress shoes and dress pants, but wearing white socks. Pretty good match here for what it is. S.A. Rios is not quite the performer yet that Eddie Guerrero is. Also, it's worth noting, S.A. Rios is not here by himself. He's got a very young Lita in his corner. And after the match, Rios would drop kick Guerrero into Chyna. And as she was stunned, Lita tore her dress off. 2 3/4 stars. Of course, Eddie retains. I thought it was okay for what it was, but we know that Eddie Guerrero is capable of so much more than some of this. But I guess we got to have a little seasoning, got to be a little entertaining, got to have a little sizzle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little JR seasoning makes everything better. And Eddie, yeah. It was set up. This was set up to get Chyna over.
Right.
That was the motivation for this angle. Well, that's not right. Eddie was in reserves all the time. I can't believe they do that. That's stupid. That goddamn booking's crazy. Okay. But there's got to be priorities in any match. You can't have multiple agendas in any pro wrestling match and expect it to quote unquote get over. You can't. You got to have a focus, and you got to have laser light. Here's what we're trying to do. In that match, it was all about the continued evolution of Joni Lauer, and she and Eddie. Again, when I heard the creative about we're going to put Eddie and Chyna together, blah blah blah, I thought it was crazy until I saw the natural chemistry they had on camera.
Right.
And when you see that, well, this is a good idea, JR. This, you weren't right on this one, because this is going to work, and it did work. And so, but I thought the match was better than 2 3/4 stars. I liked it, but of course I'm an Eddie Guerrero fan through and through, but nonetheless, it was a unique story. The white socks, the crazy ass clothes, he got his GED, Conrad, right? He got his GED, so he's celebrating the prom he never attended with the 8th wonder of the world. So I thought it was fine for what it was. It wasn't a closing match. It wasn't serious content. It was a little bit of a let me up type matchup.
S.A. Rios is not with the company too much longer after this. Why don't you think things worked out better for him and the company?
He had some issues. I don't remember what they were exactly. It's been so long, 20 years ago, but it wasn't because he wasn't a good hand. But he sometimes was a little bit careless. Could be, when you're doing a lot of high flying stuff, you cannot be sloppy. You cannot be sloppy, because not only does it look bad and you're in a magnified area when you're up in the air and you're doing things so they're strictly focused on somebody in a moving target. Fans their eyes will draw to things that are moving, and sudden movements or fast movements or multiple move sets is a big thing. But the other issue that's more important perhaps than that is the fact that high risk sometimes can lead to big injuries if they're not executed correctly. He might have been a little bit, I don't recall, Bruce might remember that better than me, but I think he might have been a little bit careless at times. And I do think there was something that tells me, and I hope I'm wrong, or hope I'm not saying out of school, but it seemed like there were some substance issues that might have been in question at that point in time. I don't remember, but he had a good look, and we were trying to tap into more of a Latin audience. So the kid had talent. He just didn't seem like he was the social / cultural fit in the locker room that you ideally might have wanted. But I just don't remember all the exact reasons for his downfall. But we didn't miss a beat when he left. But nonetheless, I thought his match with Eddie was very solid.
Let's get to the next match. But before we do, let's say that we go backstage. Triple H and Stephanie are interviewed by Coachman in the locker room. He says he's going to prove that he's that damn good. Of course, Vince is here too. And he said, most of us were surprised that Steve Austin wasn't here yet. And Vince said, Austin may have encountered some transportation difficulties. So
wink, wink.
Nice little tease. Next up, we get Chris Benoit retaining the Intercontinental title against Chris Jericho by DQ. They go 15 minutes and 8 seconds. And Meltzer would say this was an excellent match until a lackluster finish. The crowd heat wasn't there until the latter stages. It is a great match, but the finish, maybe not the best we've ever seen. Benoit's going to give Jericho a snap suplex on the belt, goes for a diving headbutt, but Jericho grabs the belt and puts it in Benoit's path, and Benoit's nose smashes open. He's bleeding badly, immediately on contact. And then White calls for the DQ on Jericho. Jericho puts the referee White in the walls of Jericho after the match until other refs break it up. And JR at first says it was a DQ, but it was a bad call because the cameras totally missed the finish. But then after the replay, they show the finish perfectly, and he changes his tune and says it was a great call. That's all, of course, directly from the Observer. 3 3/4 stars. I like the match. I like the post match. I would have liked to have seen a clean finish, but it was quite the visual to see him busted open with the belt. What'd you think?
I liked it. I think those guys had amazing chemistry, Chris and Chrissy and Chrissy, Chris and Chris, two Canadians. Hey, don't think that doesn't mean something to these guys. When you got two Canadian wrestlers have a high profile match on the pay-per-view in WWE, don't think they didn't try to go out there and kick the ass of their compadres from south of the Canadian border. They did. And those are great. That's great motivation, and it's good for the business. I think anything that motivates you to raise your game in a positive way. I've always believed that when you get guys that are as skilled as Jericho and Benoit, the only time you'll do a DQ finish is if you're leading to a major match that has a no DQ stipulation, or where disqualifications are addressed in the structure of the match. Because sometimes when you do a finish like this, it's a DQ. Here's my theory on that, Conrad. The theory is that if my favorite wins, I'm happy. If my favorite loses, I'm not happy. I'd rather either be happy or not happy as to be unfulfilled, as to be sitting on a emotion that left me feeling a little bit empty, like you apparently felt on that finish being a DQ. The DQ was kind of creative.
Yeah, of course.
And the fact that we didn't get the shot on the camera the first go around, which necessitated, necessitated me to say I think it was a bad call because I didn't see it, or I didn't see all of it. Then, as you mentioned, the replay showed that it was a good call, and then I corrected my deal, my theory. But I thought those guys had a hell of a good match. I love the chemistry of it. It was fun to watch it again. Both guys are really, really strong performers. They worked snug. It was good, man. It was a good match, and it was good to see the two Chris's do their thing and represent Canada in a big way. And they did. It was nice.
Go watch it. This is, in my opinion, if I had a different finish, I might say it was the best match on the card. As it is, I have it right behind the Dean Malenko, but you know what you're getting with these two, do you not? I mean, when you just see on a card, Jericho Benoit, well, that's going to be a fucking barn burner. Consistency,
and they're consistently good. It's just a matter how good will they be tonight? Are the stars all aligned?
Right.
But again, these guys didn't have a lot to say about the finish, i.e. nothing.
Sure.
I'm going to look for a way to get a winner. I either want the emotion of happiness or unhappiness, discomfort, anger, angst. One of the two emotions, not indifference and oh God, I didn't like that. I should have been. Why'd they do a disqualification? Because back in the day when these disqualifications were more in tune, the back information on what wrestling is or isn't was not as clarified. There was no social media. Now, if you have a disqualification finish, whether it's well timed, well executed, or whatever, many fans look at it as lazy booking. And quite frankly, I agree with them sometimes. You can't make everybody happy. So somebody should have lost. And in that case, it would have been Jericho, right? Because Benoit was the champion.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, you guys say, guys, Chrissy, I need you to put Benoit over. He's going to retain the title. I need a 1, 2, 3. So you guys figure out something and bring it, and let's talk about it. And they would come back with, here's what the office wanted. You give them the guidelines. But instead, it was like, well, I'm sure what it was is nobody could really agree on what they wanted to do. Or maybe the office said, we don't want to beat Jericho. Beating Jericho and getting screwed adds more fuel to the fire than an indifferent, benign disqualification that's not going anywhere. Just to get us out of tonight's conundrum. So, but I'm with you, man. That if the finish had been a little bit more on point to where it was advancing the story, then I would have been like you. It'd have been a higher rated match, probably one of the best matches on the show. As it was, it still was one of the best matches on the show.
Sure.
It just left the fans feeling kind of empty with the disqualification finish. And I'm glad that hopefully all promoters and promotions will take advantage of this. You gotta admit, man, fans know a lot of information. They're smart. They're knowledgeable. They're educated. That's why we have such a good audience, because Conrad, you're so goddamn intelligent.
Oh my gosh. We do have one of the smartest audiences around because we get to break down sort of the nuances of all of this. But to be clear, I'm cool with the DQ finish. I just think it should be on TV. Like if you're going to make me pay $30 or $35, I want to see a fucking winner.
Yep. Good. That's a good thought. I agree with you.
Next up, we see a video package airing showing Vince screwing The Rock out of the world title at WrestleMania. They show clips from TV leading to this match with Linda McMahon saying that Steve Austin is going to be in The Rock's corner. And then on the final SmackDown before Backlash, Austin blows up the DX bus, which is a great visual. And then The Rock is interviewed by Michael Cole, and Rock says no matter what, he's walking out as the WWE champion, and it doesn't matter who he has to go through. He'll go through them all because he's making history tonight. They get plenty of time, 19 minutes and 24 seconds. As a reminder, Shane McMahon is the referee. Vince and Stephanie are in Triple H's corner, and McMahon announces, saying, hey, we've always said the card is subject to change. Well, Austin won't be here. And throughout the show, they've tried to stack the odds, showing that Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe have aligned themselves back with Vince, and that Austin mysteriously hasn't arrived, which of course essentially guarantees that he will. And JR on commentary is bringing up internet rumors that Austin might be turning on The Rock. Vince is going to keep interfering, as you might imagine. Eventually, though, we see a run in of Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe. They're coming out with referee shirts, and you would mention that perhaps Patterson got back from the parade early, and Patterson and Briscoe attack The Rock. And, you know what's coming. Eventually we see Steve Austin's music play, and he's going to come down, hit Triple H, Patterson, Briscoe, Shane, Vince, and Triple H with hard chair shots. And, eventually it leads to a little bit of help with Linda McMahon and Earl Hebner. And, Rock uses a spine buster, people's elbow. Hebner counts the fall. Rock is your new world champion, and he's celebrating, but he's interrupted by Austin's music, and they tease the idea they're going to fight, but instead they toast each other. And, it's sort of left that, hey, we're going to do something in the future. They start playing Rock's music again as the show goes off the air, and that's it. 3 3/4 stars. And this match essentially sets up a rematch, for an Iron Man match between the two at the next pay-per-view. And Rock and Triple H have had a long rivalry going back seemingly to the beginning of Rock's run here. But what a finish to the pay-per-view. You know, you get the big explosion with, oh my God, he is here. So it makes sense. This whole tease all day about where's Austin? Where's he at? And here's the big payoff. You saw it this week for the first time in 20 years. What'd you think?
I liked the match. I liked, you know, you can make an argument there's too much interference and too many outside elements at play that may have cluttered it for some people's tastes. But I liked what Dwayne and Hunter did. I thought they had a real good outing. They had good chemistry as well. You know, I saw here a few weeks ago, not that long ago, Hunter being acknowledged for celebrating 25 years in the wrestling business. Is that 25 years in WWE, I guess?
Yeah. 25 years in WWE. I think he started in 95. Yeah.
Yeah. I knew it somewhere along in that neighborhood. And where Rock had acknowledged it, which was nice, but they had good chemistry, and they were on the same page basically. I thought, you know, I remember, speaking of Hunter, it was Evansville, Indiana. He and I sitting on one of those anvil cases, the cases that you use to carry your equipment in to keep, you know, camera equipment, lighting and things to keep them from breaking, and very, very secure. They're very heavy. He and I were sitting on an anvil case, hammering out the final arrangements on his new contract to where he got the magic number, you know, of $1 million a year. And he deserved it. I mean, it wasn't a big deal there, but getting to that number, Vince did not authorize me to do those $1 million downsides very often. And Hunter got his, and like I said, he deserved it, but he was, I remember him, for some reason, it still sticks with me. He looks at me, and it's the same way to the boys in the office. The boys in the office. Fucking excuses. It's the office. The fucking office screwed my goddamn push-up, Conrad.
I hate that.
The office. It's always somebody else. Displaced responsibilities. So anyway, he says, he very stern, looked at me in the eye and said, "Are you sure nobody's got a better deal?" I said, "Yeah, I'm very sure." "Are you doubting me?" "No, I just want to make sure." I said, "Okay, well, you're sure. Nobody in this company has a bigger downsize guarantee than you will have when you sign that contract. Is that what you wanted to hear?" "Yep." Then he shook my hand, and off they went, and there he goes. Now if he made $1 million a year, it'd be a giant cut in pay.
Sure.
So, but I remember that very well. But back to the original topic, him, Rock, and Hunter had great chemistry, and they're both in their, you know, prime time. You know, they were just as good as they're going to get, just about. And I enjoyed the whole presentation. But again, if there's any negatives to it, it may be the simple facts, as I mentioned. There could have been more outside interference and more distractions than some people's taste would allow. I liked it.
I liked it too. And I think a lot of our listeners feel the same way. We asked, hey, do you guys have a question for JR about Backlash 2000? Drop it here. If you'd like to ask a question about next week's episode, and let me tell you, it's going to be great. It's Wrestle War 1989, which is the blow off of the Steamboat Flair trilogy and the introduction of Terry Funk. Just great stuff. Can't wait to talk about that one. If you've got a question, just drop it at JR Grilling. That's our Twitter handle. It's at JR Grilling. But one of our questions, I guess one of the more predominant feelings, came from Just Chris. He says, at the end of the show, did you, like me, feel like Backlash 2000 was a better show than WrestleMania that year? We just covered WrestleMania where there was a McMahon in every corner. And I think most fans felt like the involvement of Steve Austin, the Big Rock celebration, rather than Hunter retaining, this is a better finish to a show. What say you?
Yeah, it's hard to say it was a better show from the standpoint of the sizzle and the presentation, the grandiose nature of WrestleMania, the specialness of that event. But I can tell you that the in-ring product from start to finish was badass. And I could see people making a very valid argument that the bell to bell on Backlash 2000 was actually a notch above the bell to bell on WrestleMania in 2000. But I don't know if that's a bad thing. I don't know if people are going to say, well, he's knocking the WrestleMania. No, I'm really not knocking. You're not knocking it either. It's a good question. And quite frankly, if you're managing correctly, you've God dang, Conrad, you want to improve. Every show should get better. We should be better every time. But there's always going to be more sizzle at WrestleMania than any other pay-per-view. But the steak is still going to be the steak. And that always is what concerned me the most and what interested me the most, still does this very day. So I can see a very valid point being made. Bell to bell, probably a better show than WrestleMania. Overall sizzle, nothing compares to WrestleMania.
All right, y'all, when it comes to growing your business, you need a cheat code. You need to sort of flatten that learning curve. You need Envision Marketing Consultants. I'm a big believer in these guys because I found them years ago. I first started advertising my mortgage company on television and radio like 15 years back. But when it came time to expand and I knew, hey, people are consuming media differently. We've been hearing that and saying that for years. I had no idea how to get started with digital advertising, but my radio and TV reps hooked me up. Well, I mean, they got an order and they took my money, but I didn't get any leads and I didn't know what the hell I bought. And then I met Eric Nichols and my understanding of the space went up. My understanding of what I was buying went up. And oh yeah, my leads went up. I absolutely love working with Eric Nichols and Envision Marketing Consultants. They get it. They know what I need in order to make more sales, and that's leads. So they want to get me more leads and my cost per leads down. Let me be real frank. If you're a small business owner or you're the decision maker and your company is doing SEO or pay per click or targeted display or streaming video ads on Hulu or YouTube or even Amazon, you need to go right now to conradsguy.com. No, it's not my business. No, I'm not involved, but I am loaning them my domain here at conradsguy.com. And that's born out of whenever anybody would say, hey man, how can I grow my marketing? Hey man, how can I grow my business? I routinely would say, I got a guy. Well, my guy is Eric Nichols at Envision Marketing Consultants. And if you're B2B, if you're retail, if you're food and beverage, if you're manufacturing, if you're nonprofits, hell, if you're mortgages, go check out Envision. See if they can improve your results. And by the way, if Eric and his team can't help you or your company, they'll just tell you that you're on the right track. That gives you the nice peace of mind. But trust me, it's worth a little bit of time it will take. If they can do half as good for you as they have for me, you'll see why I tell everybody, you got to call my guy. I got a guy. My guy's Eric Nichols at Envision Marketing, and he can be your guy too. Go right now to conradsguy.com, fill out the fast and easy form, and let Eric and his team get your digital marketing on track. That's conradsguy.com, Envision Marketing Consultants, where smart but simple marketing drives results.
Chris Miles writes in, why was this main event chosen for Backlash 2000 instead of WrestleMania 2000? It seems like this would have been one of the more memorable WrestleMania main events of all time. I think that's really what people hang their hat on. They just didn't like a McMahon in every corner in a 4-way match as the main event. I understand without Austin, you feel like, man, let's just throw everything at it. But I do think this main event was better than the WrestleMania main event. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. The multiple person main events at WrestleMania normally fall a little short of expectations because it's hard to, in that case, in 2000, you got to try to get spotlights on 4 people. That's hard to do and maintain it and keep the audience's interest. Because there's constant things going on. There's not a singular focus. You got wrestler 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'm not a big advocate of that. I mentioned earlier the Charlotte, the triple threat match the ladies had. that's an exception to the rule. There have been a few others, but not many. I would say more often than not, the multiple person matches at WrestleMania is a shortcut on booking and a little bit lazy, quite frankly, in my estimation. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think it's not attraction driven. Oh, it's got all the star power and all this. Maybe we overvalued having a McMahon in every corner. But I think having 4 people in the main event is not the right formula, quite honestly. So, and it also, Conrad, answered our fans' question. You know, it's easy to look back in hindsight and rebook this whole goddamn thing.
Of course.
So why did they do that? I don't know. It fit the story. It fit the story, and maybe the McMahon thought that that we were not ready yet for the the Rock and Triple H match. We saw it Unforgiven. We needed to get to that spot with a backstory. Again, remember, pay-per-views are built around the build-up. So you got a good build-up there, and the attractions. Pay-per-views are all attraction-driven, and having The Rock, who hadn't been the champion in a long time, and having Triple H, who he had great chemistry with and was the champion and was red hot, that's the attraction you're looking for. So to me, it made sense. But it's easy to say in hindsight, well, I'd have done this. Of course, a lot of things could have done it. I can tell you that a lot of things in my life I'd have done differently if I had hindsight opportunities.
Let's talk about the poster. We get lots of questions about this because, here's Surfer Dude. He says, this is the first WWF pay-per-view to feature Jericho on the promotional poster. Every other poster from 99 or 2000 features the classic main event stars like Rock, Austin, Undertaker, Mankind, etc. But this seems to stand out. The Intercontinental Champion. I wonder if JR remembers anything about this. I have a theory on this, Jim. Once upon a time, Chris was in the main event of WrestleMania 2000. There was even promotional stuff dropped out there that had him on the poster, on the DVD cover, things like that, before eventually he was replaced with Mick Foley. It feels like maybe the original plan was, coming out of WrestleMania, we're going to try something new. We're going to go with Jericho. And when that changes, it's too late. The promotional poster for this show had already been out there. So let's just roll with it.
Yeah, it was bad planning, knee-jerk changes. The one thing about the wrestling business, and I know I don't communicate not intentionally with Bruce because he's busy. He's been my friend for 30 years, and we text occasionally. The issue is that poor planning is an enemy. Bruce Pritchard is my 30-year friend and a great podcaster here on Conrad's conglomerate. He could tell you that one of the most frustrating things in wrestling in an administrative / creative role is the constant change. People changing their mind, changing their philosophy. Vince told me one time, I can't remember what it was. It was one of those solemn deals. He told me about my situation. Well, I brought you in, but I've changed. I brought you in. This is the first time I got let go, but I've changed my mind.
We're going a different direction,
and we're going in a different direction. And you're not in my plans. That was it. So, but I'm sure Bruce would say the same thing, certainly in confidence, that constant change and all these, the last person you talk to gets the influence type bullshit. Then talent's coming in on the day you're going to shoot it, and they're not happy about something. So they go to the old man, and they're going to lobby their case when they could have done it a week before. Or they could have actually contributed to their storyline and added some elements that they do like to it. So this is really, really frustrating. So the Jericho thing was, obviously, and it certainly was, it shows you a lack of foresight and vision that somebody thought that Jericho was going to be overbooked to be in that match. Right. He didn't deserve it. He didn't have the clout. He didn't have the star power, whatever. It was ridiculous. And, but that's just every place I've ever worked, maybe with the exception of Watts. When Watts thought an idea through, he went through every phase of it. He played it all the way out. He knew where he was going to start the angle. He knew where he was going to end the angle. and he was going to count on the talents to get him from the start to the end with their creative input. But every other wrestling company I've ever worked in has the same propensity to change their mind at a moment's notice, simply because some of them believe, well, it can't be this easy. This can't be the answer. So we need to change. Let's fix this. We haven't even done it. Is it broken? So anyhow, that's an issue there that Jericho fell out of favor for some reason. But who was in that 4-way match? Big Show, right?
Yeah, it was Rock and Hunter, Big Show and Foley.
Okay, here's the deal. Hate to harp on this shit. Hunter 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
Big Show 7 feet.
Yeah.
Rock 6'4".
Yeah.
Foley 6'3" or 4".
Yeah.
Then you put Jericho at under 6 feet in that mix, and from the eye test, then that don't look right. It's going to expose Chris for being smaller than he actually is. So stupid. Every wrestlers and promoters should all be lawyers, because those son of bitches come up with a million stories to make something in their opinion right or justify their take on things. It's amazing to me. But look at how Jericho overcame that slap in the face and a show of disrespect, because he's one of the biggest stars in the world right now. And thank God he's working for us in AEW. But nonetheless, I always thought that was just a lot of lack of respect for Chris's ability and what we had in Chris. And yeah, I was partial because Jerry Briscoe and I went and recruited him, and I signed Chris and got him in and all that good stuff. And became one of my best friends over the years, including this very day. But I thought that was just totally unfair. And actually it was bad business, Conrad. I mean, from the simple thing that all the posters, all the promotional material had Jericho prominently displayed as you said, as one of the key players.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden his name goes from above the title to also featuring, that kind of deal. So it was bad. But here's the deal: Jericho made it through.
Yes.
Came out on the other side,
yep.
Which is much to the point where you and I were talking about the other day, all those WWE guys that got let go. Look, if this virus doesn't go away, Conrad, much sooner than later, there's going to be a lot more layoffs, not only in wrestling, but everywhere. I saw the number the other day of how many people are unemployed in America right now. It's fucking scary. It's scary. So, but Jericho prevailed. He's tenacious little son of a bitch. He's a bad dude, but that was not a good piece of business. Fundamentally promotion or whatever. So it's always some political thing, man. That's the most negative part of pro wrestling to me. The goddamn politics. Much like parallels our country right now. Politics suck.
Let's mention too, this reaction that Austin gets when he comes out. Did you ever hear a bigger pop in your whole fucking career?
It's pretty strong. And of course you hope that with all of our incessant, teasing, that the, fans at home were jacked.
Yeah.
Pumped up. No, it was incredible. There's only been a few like that even remotely were in the realm of, consideration. And, Triple H coming back from his quad injury to the Garden. That was a big one.
Oh, this is way bigger than that.
No, I'm just saying it was.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's the biggest.
Yeah.
But there are only a handful of the moments in my 40 years in the business that I would even put into that category. And the Triple H return would be one of those matches in that category. But nothing, John Cena returned. John Cena at the Royal Rumble one year. We talked about that last week or week before where it was. This damn virus thing. I don't even know what sometimes you get the days mixed up?
Yes.
Golly, boy, I do. So I thought it was just my senility, but hell, I talked to my friends a lot younger than me. Oh man, what is today? Oh, today's Thursday or whatever. But no, the pop was incredible. That was the greatest illustration of an audience making an emotional investment and truly embracing the character of Stone Cold Steve Austin. So it was incredible. So of all the things I've seen, the championship matches I've called, the big shows, et cetera, nothing tops that ever in my career.
We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your relationship with Austin. You knew him in real life. Y'all were buds. Was he nervous, concerned? I mean, it's his first time back. He's had this neck surgery. You also got to wonder, a guy like him, he's probably wondering, hey, not only is my neck safe, but do I look like I'm supposed to look? I haven't been able to train the way I normally would. Did he have any insecurities about coming back here, or was it business as usual for Steve?
I think he always had insecurities. I think that's what made him great. He was never satisfied totally with how he looked, I never heard him go on any soliloquy or get on a soapbox about how great his last match was. There's always something in his matches that motivated him to improve and to get better. Steve kept reinventing his game. And I think that, so no matter if he was coming off an injury or whatever, he was always a little antsy. Had that, and I truly believe, it may sound crazy, I think that's one of the things that made him as great as he was. He never was satisfied. So in other words, you've heard me use this before, probably ad nauseum, he did not reside in his comfort zone. He did not reside in an area where he was content to be status quo. And a lot of guys are. They find their comfort zone from money, from a creative spot. They're on the middle of the card, the upper main event card, whatever. They're happy just to be a part of the team, so to speak. That's what they say. But the issue is, more often than not, they're just so goddamn unmotivated and some lazy that they're good enough with their natural skills to not have to worry about improving. And Steve was a guy that always wanted to improve, and even when he was the hottest guy ever in the business, he still was unfulfilled, Conrad. And I just look at that as a trait of a true legendary superstar that always wanted to get better. And but I don't remember any specifics other than the normal stuff. How do I look? He did go about how do I look, or look at my muscles or whatever. I think he was glad to get back in the locker room, at the arenas, around the talents. He's a very popular guy, and the talents had great respect for Steve. Still do. So I think he was excited about that. But as far as his performance and how it was going to go, I'm sure he had some apprehensions, because now we are getting ready to get him back in the game. Boots, black tights, all that stuff. So I'm sure that was probably cemented in his mind. When I do finally get back, how's it going to be? And the great thing is, he would even say, man, I don't know. I've been gone, and hell, they might not remember who the hell I am. Are you kidding? So all those apprehensions were addressed on that entrance, as you mentioned so well, about how big that pop was. It was extraordinary.
Go watch that match just for the pop. It's unbelievable.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what AdFreeShows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that AdFreeShows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. AdFreeShows.com.